Today I'd like to talk to you guys about lab number 3, titled Heating the Earth's Surfaces. Our essential question is, what causes storms? You can see that we've gone through and we've looked at our different variables, we've listed out all of our materials, and we've gone through our procedural steps. Today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at these 3 substances, and here we have soil, which is going to represent the land, sand, which will represent beaches, and water to represent our oceans and lakes. We've also got up here a heat lamp. What we will be doing is we'll be turning on our timers, and every 1 minute we will take a temperature reading of each of our different Earth surfaces. As we look at this and we think about our different variables, you can see some examples of controlled, meaning things that whether you're looking at trial number 1, trial number 2, or trial number 3, they must remain the same. Some of those include the fact that the light must be the same distance away from our Earth surfaces. You can see that we have to make sure that we have all of the same amounts of each of the water, the soil, and the sand. We want to make sure that we always record our time or our temperature after 1 minute. And you'll also notice that the beakers that we're using contain the same amount of material inside each of them. They're all up to the 200 milliliter mark on that. Our manipulated variables are the earth surfaces, the soil, the water, the sand. And our responding variable, that's the thing that you measure, is the temperature. Again, you can see our list of all of our different materials. One of our questions we had to ask today is, what do we do? There's not enough time during one class period to get through multiple trials. Therefore, we will be looking at data from class period 1, 2, 3, and 5 so that we have 4 different trials. Our procedural steps include number 1, gather materials. 2, prepare the thermometer. You'll notice that the thermometer had some paper over the top, and that's to provide a little bit of shade. Otherwise, the heat actually becomes too intense for the thermometers, and it impacts getting quality temperature readings off of them. Then we had to prepare our soil, sand, and water. Again, they each have their own beaker. And one of the things that we did have to do is we had to let them sit for 24 hours so that everything can come as close as we can to room temperature. We then mounted our lamp, making sure that it was 12 inches above our manipulated variables. We placed our thermometers into the beakers and we recorded our 0-minute start temperature. Step 6, we turned on the light and set a timer, and we continued to reset our timer for 1 minute and record the temperature every minute for 10 minutes with the light turned on. Then we turned the light off, and we did exactly the same thing. We still continued to set the timer for 1 minute and take those readings. It is important that you have all of this information in your science notebook, so make sure at any time if you need to press pause that you do that so that you can get this completed. One of the things that you want to do before you look at any of the data is you need to make a prediction. What do you think will happen? So I predict blank because blank. Making sure that you explain your reason why you think what you do. Again, another very key piece of information. Once you have your data, you will need to select a color for each of the different surfaces. Different color for each of these, and then you'll graph that information on this graph here. So make sure that you have this graph as well in your science notebook. Your temperature table looks like this. And of course, your space for your conclusion will go right down here. Remember to use the philosophy of HAND, H-A-N-D, when writing your conclusion. H represents that you have referenced the hypothesis, or in this case, the prediction. Were you right? Were you wrong? But important, explain why you were right or wrong. A, answer the question. Our essential question was, what causes storms? Now you have to answer that based off of the research that you found out from this lab. Make sure you use complete sentences, thorough and thought out responses as part of that explanation. Then we have the N. N says, if I did this experiment again, what would I do differently so that I have a similar experience, but I have a different manipulated variable, for example? And finally, D, I have to look at the data. I've got to come up with what was the highest, the lowest. Can I do a math problem to figure out the difference? We're going to select the data chart recorded from class period number 1. See if I can get this on here well. So you can see our starting temperature was 20.1 for the soil, 20.5 for the sand, and 19.6 for the water. All of these are temperatures in Celsius. So again, you are responsible for making sure that you have this chart completed. So we went through, and again, as I said, with the light turned on, that represents the heating side. And then we turned the light off, and that represents the cooling side. So minutes 11 through 20, that's the data that we accumulated with the light turned off. Again, here's what our lab setup looked like. So we've got our light there that is a heat lamp, and it's shown down on our models of Earth surfaces, the water, the sand, and the soil. Then we recorded that temperature each minute. All right, just a reminder, you are responsible for all of this lab. Thank you.